Morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today with you. I was asked to give some opening remarks, and I'd like to follow on Andy's kind introduction. OPIC is the U.S. government's development finance institution. So our mission in life every morning when we wake up is to figure out ways of using public resources that OPIC has been invested with by the U.S. taxpayers to catalyze private investment on behalf of development objectives around the world. That's what we do. And we have had a tremendous run over the last 5 years in terms of catalyzing investment into renewable energy around the world, and in particular in Africa. Before I talk about that, and before I talk specifically about the question of access, I do want to pause for a moment and reflect on my last 4 days here. Two specific observations. The first is, and I've attended about 3 or 4 of these now over the last 5 years, is that the level of energy at the local level from the state and local governments throughout the world is extraordinary. We're seeing action taken at the local level that is driving tremendous change toward a lower carbon economy. That's a new set of activities that has reached, I think, a level that is extraordinarily positive, and we all need to reflect and congratulate many of our local leaders for taking extraordinary action. The second area, more germane to this conversation, is the private sector. There is an extraordinary amount of activity going on, obviously in this building, but also around Paris right now. There are conferences, 6 of them at the same time in various hotels throughout the downtown area of Paris, all with private businesses making extraordinary commitments on behalf of lowering their carbon footprint, making corporate commitments to greening their supply chains and to investing into renewable energy. And that, I think, is an absolutely amazing and important part of what has happened here over the years. So I feel good at the moment. I feel very good at the moment about where we're going to end up, and I hope that the leadership here and the COP will give us an outcome that will build on the successes that are coming out of the local level as well as the business community. OPIC believes that we are in the midst of the most predictable economic transformation in human history. This transition to a low-carbon economy will be seismic, it is happening, and it's going to create more jobs and more wealth than any other transition has in human history because of how big the energy sector is. And nowhere, I think, is that transition more apparent, more important, and more impressive than in Africa. Why? Because today in Africa, 600 million people do not have access to power. So the opportunity to take people from no power to an electrified continent is extraordinary. And the work that Andy and his team at USAID, the work that CETA, the work that the governments of Norway, the governments of Sweden, and so many other partners have been doing have proven in a very short period of time that collective action on behalf of a goal of electrifying a continent is not only a good idea, but is possible. OPIC has focused really on the 2 main goals of Power Africa. What are they? They are to drive new megawatts of energy generation, and they are to provide new connections, new access for people who previously did not have them. And in each of those areas, those are very different business models. Those are very different companies. Those are very different ways of providing power. On the first, we've been proud to support the largest ever concentrated solar project in South Africa, the Redstone project, with $300 million of loans. We've supported the largest wind farm in Africa, the Lake Turkana wind project in Kenya. And we've supported smaller grid-connected projects as well. I see Josef Abramowitz here from Gigawatt Global, who in 9 months constructed the first grid-connected solar facility outside of South Africa in Rwanda. It's a beautiful facility. I recommend you take your family there and visit for vacation. It's a gorgeous hilltop setting about an hour outside of the capital. Those are what we're doing to provide access into the grid-connected megawatt goal. On the access side, I think this is the most exciting part. How do you provide access to the 600 million Africans who do not currently have it? And in that area, we've got some exciting stories to tell as well. Just a month ago, or I guess 2 months ago now, at a forum that was called together by Secretary Kerry in Washington, I had the great pleasure and honor of signing a $15 million loan with a very innovative company called Nova Lumos, in their work to provide first-time connectivity through solar home kits in Nigeria. Several months before that, we had made an $8 million investment into a company called PowerHive, which is providing mini-grid solutions in Kenya. And we have in our pipeline currently, in our project pipeline for financing a suite of off-grid investments, which include companies like PowerHive, Off Grid Electric, SunFunder, Solar Mosaic, D-Light, and Cross Boundary. So we believe that to accomplish the dual objectives of Power Africa, which is to provide large-scale megawatts grid-connected energy on one hand, and also first-time energy access, that we're well on our way. We also believe that those challenges will not be met without the private sector. And our mission here on this stage and continuing through the coming years of the Power Africa initiative is to catalyze, to incentivize, to attract innovative entrepreneurs, strong businesses, and committed business people to come together with us to provide the energy that Africa needs. And we're convinced that with the good work of these governments here and many of the clients and innovators and entrepreneurs in the audience today, we'll continue to do that. So thank you very much, and good luck to everyone here. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Wanjira Maathai to come up as well. So we're going to go ahead and start this panel, and we are somewhat short on time. We want to make sure we have an opportunity for some questions and answers. These are all very accomplished experts and great partners that we have on the stage. Let me first just introduce quickly who's with us today. We're with Hans Olaf Ibrecht from the government of Norway in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who's been a key part of working with Power Africa really since the beginning. Despite the fact that we only signed an MOU just a few days ago, we've been working together very closely. The way that Power Africa works is we work with anyone, and as we start to realize that there are a lot of areas of commonality, both at the corporate level or headquarters level and then in the field, we say, all right, you know what, maybe we should be more formal partners, and this is how it's been working with us. And then Charlotte Petrogornicka, the director of Swedish SIDA, has been one of our greatest partners and advocates since the beginning with Power Africa. And the government of Sweden, during the African Leaders Summit, committed $1 billion to Power Africa as a partner. So we're very excited to have Charlotte here as well. Charlotte also is one of the leaders of this new initiative that we're launching under Power Africa called Women in African Power. And Charlotte can tell us a little bit more about that, and I can talk about that as well. And we are with Henning Wooster, who's the Director of Knowledge Policy and the Knowledge Policy and Finance Center at the International Renewable Energy Agency. And then we're really lucky to have with us Wanjira Maathai, who many of you know already, and she's a director of the Partnership on Women's Entrepreneurship, WPower. And she really focuses in working at the grassroots level with women in the off-grid space. The topics that we want to cover, a few questions, and this will be a lively panel because it's not going to be just regurgitating back things that you've all heard about 600 million people not having access to electricity in sub-Saharan Africa and statistics. We know that. We know what the problem is. We also know what the opportunities are. So we're going to be looking at tackling a few questions. One will be why renewable energy will help us reach our goals, especially in Africa. And I'm saying why, not how. When you say why, what that's implying is we know that it's going to be driving the development of the sector. The economics make sense now. This isn't a how of how can we make it work. We all are going to work together to make it work, but it's going to happen with us or without us because the costs keep going down. People want to be able to be in control of their own energy situation in their house by having rooftop solar, and the companies aren't waiting for us. Our role is to see how we can make this revolution happen even more quickly. So that's the why. And we're going to talk about the importance of gender inclusivity and energy practices as well. And then finally, how partnerships like the ones we're showcasing today will help us get to our goals. And I think that's one of the things that we've all learned as working together we can accomplish great things. So with that, I'd like to invite Hans Olaf just to give a few opening remarks.
Thank you, Andy. I think I'll just be seated there. First of all, it's a pleasure for us to be joining up and teaming up with Power Africa and my neighbor Sweden, and also with Irene and all the other partners. So we really look forward to developing this partnership. Let me just start. I'm focusing a little bit more on the off-grid market and the market opportunities. Some years ago, IFC released a study saying that this is a $37 billion market. And I think that's really a market worth looking into, and several actors are doing so. Secondly, I would also like to say that I think it's important now that we don't reinvent the wheel, in the sense that there are really good experiences out there that we can build on. And here at COP-21, I've heard success stories being mentioned more or less every hour. We have a country that I'm working with myself, Bhutan, nearly 100% coverage. Uruguay, mentioned yesterday, from 27 to 95%, just to take a few. The G20 countries' experiences. We have Ghana and Africa and Rwanda, that was also mentioned from John, and the great efforts and the leadership that has been provided in some of these countries. So I think we need to build on them. Secondly, I think that it's quite clear that we have the technology, we have the emerging business models, but we are not at the scale required. And there's one point that I would like to highlight, and that is the need for capacity. We need to develop and train adequate staff in order to meet this challenge. I think that is a key fundamental issue, and I talked to a solar developer some years ago and asked him specifically what is the main challenge, and he said it was the lack of trained staff. So this is something that we urgently need to work on. And then the final point from my side would be that we need to work in partnership, and I think this demonstrates our partnership, that we need to work together to use the scarce and increasingly scarce public resources more efficiently to leverage or crowd in investments from other actors. Thank you.
Hold on to that for a moment. I'm going to break it up a little bit. I'm going to ask you a question, Hans Olaf. So let's talk about hydro for a moment, because Norway has tremendous expertise in the hydro market. What role do you think there is for hydro, whether it's mini hydro, run of river, or otherwise, to really bring baseload power to people on the continent?
In Africa, only 10% of the hydropower potential has been developed. So there's tremendous scope to develop hydropower as a baseload for many countries. We are supporting a project in Liberia together with the US, Mount Coffee, making sure that the plant there is rehabilitated so it will serve the people of Liberia. There's also tremendous scope to develop small-scale, mini, micro hydro. A key challenge we are faced with when it comes to developing hydropower is, of course, the increasing climate variability that needs to be factored into. But I think it's important that we change our policy vis-a-vis hydropower, because hydropower is a renewable energy source. In many air camps, hydropower is not labeled as a renewable energy source. But from our perspective, as a country where we have 99% of our electricity is hydropower, for us, of course, we were fortunate and we struck water and we developed water. And I think many African countries can do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans Olaf. I'm going to turn to Henning now. And Henning, we're very excited about our new partnership with IRENA and the marketplace as well as the clean energy corridor. We heard a little bit about hydro. Can you talk both about the marketplace and also the potential for other technologies? Because what we all learn and we agree on is that it's no single technology that is the answer, but it's the broad mix of technologies working together. The sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow, and it doesn't always rain. But working together, you can really have a broad mix and a reliable mix of energy sources.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really happy that we are able to work together on this. The reputation of Power Africa is one of being practical and getting things done, and that's exactly what we are aiming for with the marketplace. So it's really great to be able to work together on this. You mentioned the different renewable energy technologies. We've estimated the need or the potential for Africa to move into renewables. It's, in our view, significant. At the moment, it's not fully exploited. We believe that by 2030, Africa can have 300 gigawatt renewable energy generation capacity installed. And that includes 100 gigawatts hydro, it includes 100 gigawatts wind, a little less than 100 gigawatts solar, and then modern biomass to add to the mix, so that we end up actually above 300 gigawatts of capacity by 2030.
So I'm gonna interrupt you for a moment on that. 300 gigawatts, okay? 300 gigawatts is an extremely ambitious goal to achieve, and there's no question that Africa possesses the natural resources for 300 gigawatts of power. What is going to be the secret? Power Africa, we're 2 years into this, and we're tracking a little over 30 gigawatts of power. And we're doing renewable, and we're looking at other types of so what's going to be the secret to actually unleashing 300 gigawatts of power? And I know one of the secrets is having all of us work together, but what's your secret?
I think that will be a longer answer because there's no one small fix to get us there. But there are several factors, and one was already mentioned, that's getting the private sector engaged, getting private investors to bring in the capital that is required to scale up. Our estimate is that you need about 32 billion US dollars investment per year in order to be able to scale up to that level. At the moment we are at 8, so that means a 4-fold increase. It's significant. It's indeed a huge challenge, but it's feasible also because of the answer to the first question that you posed. Why does Africa, why should Africa go into renewables? Many countries have realized that it's actually beneficial for them to do so. They've understood that it creates jobs locally, it creates benefits, socio-economic benefits, it creates benefits in terms of water security, energy security. So there is a driving force behind it because governments are interested. Governments are starting to put in place the policy and regulatory environment that actually enables then private sector investors to come in. And that's exactly the process that we are both supporting with both the Africa Clean Energy Corridor and the marketplace. So the corridor is there to help governments build the environment to enable investments, to identify through zoning work where different renewable energy technologies are feasible. And then when we use the marketplace to actually develop projects, help project developers move those projects to investment maturity, and then identify financing outlets that can take the investments and make things happen.
How can people access the marketplace?
Marketplace.irena.org.
Okay,
so that's
good.
the simple answer.
Okay, good. That's what I was hoping you would do so people could do. Okay, Wanjira, I want to turn to you because Power Africa has 2 goals. We have a 30,000 megawatt, 30 gigawatt goal, and we have a 60 million connections goal. And we realize that we're not going to get 60 million connections through the grid exclusively because there are millions of people, if not hundreds of millions of people on the African continent who aren't even part of the grid master plan. And at the same time, people aren't waiting for the grid. Some people are fed up with the utilities, they're fed up with load shedding. Even people who could connect to the grid are opting for rooftop solar solutions and other sort of off-grid solutions. We have exciting companies, and I saw in the audience we have colleagues from Mobisol here. Mobisol is absolutely transforming the marketplace because what it's doing is it's not just offering people cell phone charging and a few light bulbs, but it's offering people appliances, televisions, hair straighteners, irons, super efficient appliances that draw 1/10 the amount of power that traditional appliances draw that can be powered with solar panels and that people can pay for a very low price that replace what they're otherwise spending on kerosene and other sources of biomass. Can you tell me a little about the work that you're doing, particularly with women in this off-grid space and what you see as being the future for this space?
Absolutely, Andy. I'm excited about the on-grid, the promise of on-grid energy, but I'm doubly excited about the potential for the off-grid sector. We have to realize that the sheer scale, 90% of women who actually power Africa, by the way, of women in, yes, yes, of those women, especially I can speak for Kenya, cook and light with kerosene or firewood. And that is really the potential to transform, is to transform the way they cook and the way they light. And I know that for the WPower initiative, for example, we're looking at the access to finance, but also access to technologies, and getting those technologies to the women at the grassroots. It's not only about access to energy, it's about transforming their environments, it's about transforming their health. 4 million people a year die from indoor air pollution alone. That is unacceptable. And so there are so many benefits, actually, to bringing renewable energy technologies. And what's exciting is the space is getting crowded and competitive. There's the financing models today that from people like M-Kopa, who are offering financing on a pay-as-you-go basis and access to technologies on a pay-as-you-go basis. But we also have organizations like Solar Sister, women selling to each other these technologies. And so the promise at the grassroots is wonderful. But we cannot forget that the immediacy and the urgency of action, because yes, indeed, we're looking at how many gigawatts of electricity. By the time that happens, we could already have transformed the lives of 90% of our rural populations. That's exciting.
Thank you. Do you get the sense that the developments that are taking place in the off-grid space may actually transform the on-grid space as people lose patience with the grid?
I don't think I think it would accelerate. I think, for example, in Kenya, we are constantly reminding our government officials that the domestic and the off-grid space is as important in helping the on-grid progress. That if we have access, if we have progress in the on-grid space and in the off-grid space, it will accelerate progress in the on-grid space.
So Kenya is a very special place. And it's especially special for me when we first launched Power Africa. That's where our headquarters was based. And President Obama went and visited this summer, and he got to see a lot of the great entrepreneurs, the Kenyan entrepreneurs, in the off-grid and the rooftop solar space. Whenever someone tells me that they want to get into this market on the continent of Africa, they always say they want to start in Kenya. And I always tell them, well, there's a lot of competition there already. So I hope you're going to partner with an existing company. But there are 50 other countries in Africa where you can be working. What advice would you give to other governments to create the atmosphere so that other companies feel welcome and they can be successful, so that the same exciting market that's being created in Kenya can be replicated in other countries across the African continent?
I think one of the most important things that our governments can do is to create the atmosphere for these businesses to thrive. It's an extremely expensive business at the moment. Many of the companies that are in the cooking sector, for example, are producing their technologies in China. And so we are seeing a little bit more of lowering of tariffs so that these companies can produce and have the access to the raw materials that they need to produce locally, because the demand is unbelievably great. I just got off a phone call with Kenya today. We trained the WPower project, which, by the way, is a US government-funded initiative looking at the off-grid space. We trained a group of women in Western Kenya. They had never seen some of the technologies, the clean cook stoves and the solar lanterns and all of these, the array. And many people said they would never be able to afford them. About 50 of these women found the money wherever to purchase the clean cook stoves that are actually at the highest end of the market. And this is rural Western Kenya. Let's not assume that they do not know, they do not have the money to purchase. They will find it as long as they know what the potential for these technologies to transform their lives. They did it. And this is today as I speak to you.
And there you heard from Women in African Power right there. So with that, I just want to quickly announce, and I want to ask Charlotte to tell us a little bit about Women in African Power. This is something that, as Power Africa has been operating over the last few years, we increasingly realize that some of the greatest innovators and some of the people at all levels, whether you're talking about in the grid level space, and I see Anita George from the World Bank just arrived as well, one of the great women in African power as well, and many of the people in the audience, we realize that there's tremendous opportunity for networking, for mentoring, but also to identify how women can be working together, because as was pointed out, women are kind of running the African power industry anyway. So with that, Charlotte, I'd like to offer you a chance to give a few remarks and specifically also address how you see the role of women in the African energy sector. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. You are really guiding us with your questions. I was going to start in a completely different end, but
you can speak about whatever you wish,
because
but
I
that's
know
the
that
one
you can
question.
do that.
Yeah.
So I have 2 pins on my scarf here. One is Power Africa, because we need partnerships to really do changes together. The other one is a Swedish pin which says fossil free.
But I just want to point out that your Power Africa pin is also a Swedish pin, because that has the Swedish flag colors on it.
It's yellow and blue, like the Swedish flag. But seriously, why are we so engaged in this? I mean, it's obviously because we believe in universal moral and economic, both obligation and being smart. And with Sweden comes commitments for climate, which is about 100% renewable, which is about doubling our commitments to the different funds for next year and all of that. But with Sweden comes a lot of evidence when it comes to investing in gender and in women. We actually have a feminist foreign policy, which everybody is asking us, what is that about? And it's truly based on the belief that it's a moral obligation, but it's also very economically smart to work with women and include women. And when we partner with you, Andy, and the others in Power Africa, we realize that we just need to do this with a lens of a gender lens, which means that when we are smart in the off-grid solutions, we are also smart in investing in SMEs for women in Africa. We are thinking a little bit outside what is needed to create that environment. You actually need public lighting, which is there in the evening, so that you can actually work longer hours if that's needed. You need a clinic that has lights during night so that you actually can give birth at a clinic during nighttime. You need lights in school. You need social services that are electrified so that you can enable women then to start their SMEs where they can be so much smarter with a new renewable energy solutions. So we are seeing everything we do with the lens of gender. And in doing so, we can also see that there are too few women, actually, that we put on panels in the business of energy in Africa. So what we want to do is to support the development of a network that promotes women in power in Africa, which means everything from promoting a career, everything from actually knowing who they are so that they can be present on all these different international arenas, because that will build something more on top of that. But we will also use this network to realize or to utilize the competence that we will get from these women on how can we improve even better the way we actually involve women. McKinsey has just came out with a research or a study which said that the global growth could grow 26% if women were included in the business sector more than they are. So it is really a business case, if not a right. And so what we want to do is to explore this network for women in Power Africa. We don't know exactly the details, but we want to explore how we can promote both the career within the business as such, but also being clever in serving the women of the world so that they can be part of the inclusive growth we need.
I can't think of a better advocate and an articulate advocate as you are for this. So we're really thrilled to have you as a partner in this. We now have some questions from Twitter. Is that correct? From the audience first, okay. And then if no one from the audience has questions, although it looks like there are going to be plenty, we're going to play a game show, and I have some ideas. We'll have a quick round of ideas.
Do you want to join the panel?
Sure.
There's a microphone right there. Perfect. Okay, just raise your hand. Let's take two at a time. Okay, so there. Just introduce
Thank you. I'm Princess Abze from Burkina Faso, engineer and energy. So I don't have the suit of the year, but what I wear here has been made by the informal sector in Africa, powered with multifunctional platforms. I totally agree with you, ma'am, from CEDA in Sweden. We need to empower our women in Africa. 1,400,000 hours every day is spent on going to bring water and wood. That is every day, 1,400,000 hours. What we put in place is the multifunctional platforms that the women can transform what they're producing, and also within the initiative Marmalade for Sustainable Energy that I put in place, they can, we put solar power pumps that they can have irrigation, because with the multifunctional platforms, as they have time, they ask me, what can we do with that time left? So that they have, after raining season, or the fruits and vegetables that they can, that women really, if we have the means, we can empower ourselves. We don't look for charity. If we have the financial tools to adapt it, I'm telling you, we can empower ourselves. And that's the kind of partnership that we want. I thank you.
Can I just make a quick commentary? Since now I'm on the panel, so I can have a quick intervention. I mean, what you said is what I describe as what Power Africa is about. I always say it's about Africans controlling their own energy destiny. And I say it's at the macro level, where a country is managing its own resources in a sustainable way without too much external intervention, and they're making bankable deals that will last for generations. The other part is at the household level. It's about people, women like you and others, and men also, who don't have to walk 4 kilometers to go charge their mobile phone, because they have mobile phones, whether you have power or not. And you're not wondering when there's going to be load shedding. It means that you can work with one of 5, 10, 20 companies, probably 40 companies in Kenya, to plug in an hour or a day, not wait 5 years, a rooftop solar panel, so that you can get on with your day. And that's what people are realizing, and the private sector realizes this. And this is why I'm saying the private sector and the people on the ground are not waiting for us, but we can play a role in making it happen faster and in more places.
Thank you. My name is David Ibong from Uganda. I'm a project developer, and we are keen about energy for productive applications. And our company is putting on a model of energy and industrial park with excess electricity on the grid, so that we can provide market guarantee for small-holder farmers. And with this kind of driving initiatives at local levels and also at the global scale or African scale, the IRENA, the Power of Africa, where is the meeting point to really enable this kind, through partnership, deliver this kind of projects on the ground?
One more. Let's take one more question. One more question back here. Okay, you have to be very quick, okay? Very quick, very quick.
Okay, my name is Marie Tamwafo. I come from Cameroon. I'm really happy to be part of this, to attending this meeting. My work, I'm from the civil society, and we have tried in Cameroon to put in place a program. I'm from Yali to ILVP, but as a young entrepreneur, I think that is also a good idea to support the young people, but also the women work. And what I'm trying to do is to connect the young people and the women and also the government on what we are doing at the community level. My problem is about what we have tried to do in Cameroon. We have tried to organize 15 communities who are now being electrified with solar panel. But the problem is that 300 communities are asking for more of this project, and it's really difficult for me as a civil society member to purchase, to continue with this program. And I'm just putting it forward that if there is any other partnership that could be done, not only in Kenya, but also in Cameroon, or just to support what we are doing, it will be a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much.
Shall I address that one first?
Yes, please. There's another microphone right up there if there's more.
Okay. thank you for that question. The Hydropower Hub at the University of Nairobi Wangari Maathai Institute is actually developing a platform to do exactly that, to support organizations and individuals like you, because we do agree with you completely that the entrepreneurship, especially for young people, the potential for entrepreneurship in the renewable energy sector, especially off-grid, is great. And they do need, one, the training, the skills in entrepreneurship. Not everybody is an entrepreneur, and I think that's extremely important when we're looking at the potential for entrepreneurship. It's not to assume that everybody is an entrepreneur. For those who are, that they get the training they need, but they also get the mentorship. We're finding that if you train people and they get off the blocks excited, we've got to provide a support system that they can plug back into to succeed in that entrepreneurship, because they must succeed if that entrepreneurship is going to grow. So yes, indeed, I think you should stay in touch with the Hydropower Hub at the University of Nairobi. If you look us up online, and we'll continue to work with you. We're working with partners, certainly the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves, and I see Leslie is here just in front of you, is doing great work with in the clean cooking solution sector, the cooking stoves, but also the fuels. But you can also work around solar with the people like Solar Sister who are working in Nigeria. So we can partner you with a lot of these people who are doing exactly what you're trying to do.
Yeah, let me just respond briefly to the other question, because I thought, I think that is actually precisely the type of project that we are targeting with the marketplace. So we have seen that there are a lot of small to medium-sized projects out there that are interesting, viable. They're suitable business models for the realities in Africa, and they are not making their way towards financing. On the other side, we see that there are 85 funds, programs or facilities that offer some kind of funding and can be accessed if you know who to contact. And that's exactly the link we are trying to make by putting this marketplace there. I mean, we need partners to actually then come and use it, and we invite you to do so. And we will also add some of our own resources to it. And I can link up to the community question, because we have got, as Irina, we are working with the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development. And one of the projects we actually did was for communities in Mali, where we put in place for 30 villages hybrid solar diesel systems. And this was a project that was replicated by the World Bank for 50 other villages. And now the French Development Agency is adding 40 other villages with the same business model to it. So I think this is the kind of direction that we need to take, and that's what we want to encourage with the marketplace.
If you allow me to do a short commercial break, it's related to Cameroon. Actually, we have this company, Sunergy, who is actually investing in Cameroon. And they have a project concept called Connecting the World, where they provide light, internet, and satellite TV. And they're working actively with the local communities and civil society in rolling out this program. So that's worthwhile looking into. I'm not going to say which country it's coming from. You could guess.
Other questions from the audience, or did you get any Twitter questions? Okay.
We actually are now able to bring our audience in live from Addis Ababa. So as they're getting loaded up here on screen, and they're going to ask the panelists a question, hopefully we'll be able to see them on this screen here as well. I would remind all the rest of you online to hashtag AskUSCenter so we can get your questions in too. So let me turn it over to Addis Ababa.
Greetings, my name is Sarah from Hope College of Business Science and Technology. Hans Olav mentioned that we have a challenge in lack of trained staff. And I'm from a training institute. We have other universities present with us and students as well who want to build capacity. Even we need to have capacity building to realize our own climate resilient green economy plan to be both middle income and carbon neutral by 2025. What kind of skills do you think we need to be building? What kind of training for our young people to be involved in this vision? I'm wondering to be prepared to work with the private sector to achieve this dream. Thank you.
So what kind of skills do young people need? And do I want to take one more question from the audience to add to that? Okay, just right here.
I'm David Tucker with the Unitarian Universalist Association, wearing my religious NGO hat and wearing my work hat with the Environmental Finance Center, an applied research center at the University of North Carolina in the United States. And I'm wondering how you feel that university research centers abroad, including in the U.S., including ours, can help support the work of Power Africa, because it's something that we're very interested in terms of research and training and technical assistance in helping to support this very, very important renewable energy initiative for Africa and really for all of us over the whole world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just ask our panelists to please be brief in answering those questions because we have only a little over 5 minutes left. Thank you.
I can address very quickly on the capacity building because it's absolutely critical. It's clear that Power Africa's goal is to be working hand in hand with African governments, but with African students and otherwise. It's no coincidence that President Obama announced the Young African Leaders Initiative the same time that he announced Power Africa and Trade Africa. What we're going to be doing fairly soon is that we actually will have the first Yali Institute. It's going to be a Yali Energy Institute, and we're trying to figure out which university in the United States it was competitively, competed, will be running this institute. But at the same time, Power Africa on the continent, we have these transaction advisors. Our model is to have people who are on the ground. A lot of our transaction advisors are Americans and other expatriates, and we want to take the model what General Electric did when it first came to the African continent. When GE first started, about 80% of its senior staff were Americans and about 20% local staff. Now it's flipped. It's about 20% Americans or international and the rest Africans. For our transaction advisors, we're going to be starting a fellowship where they're going to be working with local people in the countries who basically can shadow them for the next several years and surpass them and have several of them. So we're taking local capacity building very, very seriously. The other thing that we're doing is the African development banks, the financing facility, which is bringing in international legal experts to sit side by side with African lawyers to represent African governments in their negotiations on these deals so that they have fairly negotiated and sustainable deals that will last for years to come.
May I add to that? Because we're all talking about that what we need to make this happen is partnerships. And I would say whatever education, whatever we call it, you need a skill set on the different driving forces for the stakeholders involved. You need to know what an NGO wants to get out of it. You need to know what a government from North wants to get out of it. You need to know about the business sector. Don't underestimate that as a skill set in itself. It's only then when you can really build a partnership around an understanding. And I think that's very important. Yeah.
Let me just briefly add one aspect which I think is key. That's operation and maintenance of installations. That's absolutely critical, and it's an opportunity because that's the employment opportunity locally when you opt for renewable energy. And we've had on Sunday at our Renewable Energy Day a Malawian 23-year-old student who set up an academy in Malawi to train young students for operation and maintenance for solar kits, because he was observing that many houses ended up with solar panels on their roof, but they were dysfunctional because there was nobody locally there to actually maintain them and repair them when they were broken. So he started this small academy, and now there are people there who can actually repair the solar kits that help in their daily lives to change the lifestyles.
Could I just mention the United Nations Foundation's Practitioner Network, which I think is an excellent facility also for practitioners to get together. So.
Perfect. We have just a couple of minutes, so I'm going to take 3 quick questions because we have one online, one from Ethiopia, and one from the woman in the blue jacket up there. So just quickly, the online question from Olive Wahoo. How many countries is Power Africa working with to provide energy opportunities? And how are you working with grassroots organizations in that? Now the woman in the blue jacket, and then Ethiopia.
My name is Faustina Boachi. I come from Ghana. I'm here on Energia and the Gender and Energy Network of Ghana. My concern is about girls. In Ghana, for example, girls finish school at the level of junior high school. Their parents don't have money to continue for them to even get vocational skills. What can we do for these girls? In my village, it's a mining area. The lands have been depleted. These big multinationals have taken all the money away. There hasn't been much development. Most of these girls go into prostitution. Most of these girls get pregnant very early and hang around with several children and with poverty. What can be done? I want them to become, especially technology producers of cook stoves. I want them to be entrepreneurs. I want them to be able to maintain the stoves themselves and also to get rich, you know, and be able to take care of their siblings and their families. Yes.
Thank you very, very much.
Very important.
Thank you. And then our final question from our audience in Ethiopia.
All right. Thank you so much. My name is Nabiyu from Alexandria University. You have been planning about to Power Africa, which is about 300 gigawatt hour in 2013. And to attend this goal, you need a very serious involvement of private sector to produce power. But practically, in countries like Ethiopia, the government is not interested to involve the private sector to produce power. So, what efforts you have been doing to convince the governments like Ethiopia to participate or to invite the private sector to involve in power production? Thank you.
So, and just in case that question was difficult to hear, how can Power Africa work with the governments in countries like Ethiopia to better attract the private sector?
I'll quickly address all three questions, but give my fellow panelists an opportunity. First, Power Africa is working all over sub-Saharan Africa. And how are we going to benefit the girls? We're going to get kerosene out of every girl's house and get them solar lanterns and other, if they're not getting connected to the grid, or other rooftop solar solutions. That's what our goal is, so that people have clean, affordable energy solutions, whether it's grid connected or not grid connected. And you need to make sure that they have enough power for productive uses as well. How are we working with the governments? This is, as I mentioned, is we work closely with them, sitting right by their side to provide them advice on how to expedite these deals. We look for governments that are willing to make the difficult reforms necessary. We look for partners that are willing to make hard, tough decisions, and we want to support them. And it's not just the U.S. government. It's all the people sitting here. It's the World Bank. It's the African Development Bank. Everyone's tired. There's absolutely no excuse for every single person on the African continent to not have access to power. The resources are there, the money is there wanting to invest, and the only problem are people. And it's either people who just don't have the capacity, and we can play a role in helping them gain that capacity, or it's people who simply are afraid to make a decision or are making the wrong decisions. And we, working with the African governments, and I know that the youth on the African continent are tired of this as well, and we see incredible entrepreneurialism taking place right now, that you look at companies like D-Light and companies like M-Copa and companies like Off-Grid Electric, they're training hundreds of youth in this industry. So much so that they're jumping from one company to the next and they can't train people quickly enough. So there's a tremendous market potential in Kenya, and what we need to do is figure out how to replicate that model all over the continent. But we need all of your help to do this together.
Great. I wanted to answer Faustina. We're talking about renewable energy and off and on grid, etc. But Faustina, we have got to keep our girls in school. It doesn't matter what we want them to do. If they're going to be competitive, if they're going to participate in this sector, whatever, we have got to prioritize keeping our girls in school. Unless they're well equipped, forget the rest. And I think one of the most important things, and I don't know if it's the same McKinsey study, I just heard this week that another McKinsey study, or the same one, released information that what is keeping girls and what is holding women back is unpaid, the fact that they are stuck in unpaid care work. We have got to move them beyond unpaid care work, and education is the best way to do that. Let's focus on keeping those girls in school.
And with that, that seems like perfect words to close this event on. Inspirational words from Wanjira Maathai. Thank you very much. Thanks for our panelists. What a great panel.